back to another episode of Warriors Off-Road. Today we're going to talk about a common problem that happens after you've done a clutch job or even an engine job, and that may be where you get it all together and you go to put it in gear and it seems like it slams in gear real hard. The RPMs are really high and you have difficulty shifting it from high, low, neutral, and so forth. But when you turn the ignition off, everything seems to be fine. Well, some of the most common problems are when you put that back together, the variator, the rolling weights inside there. As you're putting it on, that shaft, the crankshaft, sometimes those roller weights will come out of their valleys, their ramp areas, and they'll cock sideways, and it prevents the variator from compressing all the way. So in essence, it's like having the clutch engaged. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a common problem, how to solve it, and what the typical scenarios are with that. So again, you've just rebuilt the engine, or you've had the clutch off to do some modifications or servicing or whatnot, and it's the variator. So it goes back on, you think everything's right, you put it all together, you button it all up, you fire it up, the RPMs are a little high. When you go to put it in gear, it goes boom, real hard. Well, that's a high indication that your variator roller weights have come out of their valleys, out of the roller galleys. So let's take a look and see if that's the case. This one actually has that problem, so we're going to take a look at it and see if that's what's causing it. Let's give it a fire up and see what happens. Cycles, everything's good to go there. There we go, neutral. You can see the RPMs, very high. What happens when we try and put it in gear? Real hard, real hard. Step on the brake, put it in gear. Well, it just lurches. Hard to get out. I can't even put it back in neutral. So we get it off. See, all the gears work fine. That tells me that the variator weights have probably come out of their tracks. So let's take a look at that. We're going to have to take some things apart and find out what's going on. So we're going to have to remove this cover. We're going to have to pull out the fuel tank and set it off to the side. We're probably going to have to pull off this whole side cover. It just makes a whole lot of sense when you get the side cover off. To take the side cover off, pull off the rear fender, pull off the front fender. Let's get to work. Alright, so we removed the fuel tank. We've actually removed the side cover. Getting access to the bottom 3 bolts on here is easy. You just take this last skid plate off and you can get the bottom bolts easier. So now we have access to the clutch. And our problem is actually right in here in the variator. So one of the weights in here has probably come out of the groove. So let's take this off and take a look inside and see what's going on, okay? Taking the cover off. I've taken the variator off the shaft. And you can see right there, so I pulled here's the cover, so let's pull this back. Ah, look. Very common for these to slide out if you don't install it just correct. So we're going to put that in there, make sure they're all in there. Put this back in. You can see how far down it goes now. Let's put the clutch cover back on. Let's remount this and see how it fires up. Alright, so we've done a couple things here. We fixed the variator weights so we know that they're in the track properly. I've rotated the belt by hand, or the clutches by hand, to make sure the belt gets tight tension. Now I put the fuel tank in the passenger side for now. So I've got the fuel lines hooked back up. Remember, don't lose that clip. These are hard to get, okay? So I've put this back on. I've plugged in the fuel lines, so this way I can do an operational check on the clutch without putting everything back together and realizing there's a problem. So let's fire it up and see what happens. Let's see what our RPMs are at. It should be around 1400. Look at that, perfect. So now what happens when I go in gear, not a problem. See, I can shift in and out of gear, no problem. All good. All right, let's put it back together and let's go have some fun riding. All right, well you've seen now what happens. Again, this is something that occurs a lot of the time. It doesn't mean that's your problem. You always want to check for air leaks, make sure all your connectors are done right, make sure there's no ground strap that's loose or anything like that could cause this type of problem. This particular one, we had the engine out because we were redoing the transmission and putting it back in. This happens once in a while, and sometimes I get cocky myself and I'll put it together and I'll assume I did it right. Sometimes that'll get you. So I always recommend to keep your fuel tank out on the passenger side, if possible. Connect it. And leave the cover off the clutch area, and then fire it up. And then you'll know right away if the RPM should be where they're at. You'll know you've done it correctly. So again, when you're putting that variator on, you want to make sure all the roller weights are in their grooves. Hold the cover down, secure it. Then as you slide it on that shaft and you fit it to the splines, hold it in there with your hand and use your other hand with a nut and washer and hand tighten it. That'll keep everything in place. Another thing you want to keep in mind is when you're putting that variator on, you do want to put the 2 screws into the main clutch and separate the sheaves. What that does is that it allows the belt to slide into that sheave a little bit more, and it'll give room for the belt to move so that the variator can sit on properly. If you don't push those sheaves apart on the clutch, you could have a problem on the variator trying to get that to fit. It's going to be tight because the belt's pushing up against it. So use the adjuster screws, screw out your sheave on your main clutch, the belt will ride down, put the variator on, find the grooves, pop it in, make sure it's locked in, hand tighten the bolt and nut in the washer, make sure the bevel side of that washer is facing the variator. Don't forget to take those 2 screws out of that clutch, that could be a problem. Once it's all down, and I'll take my 1/2-inch gun and I'll zip that 19mm nut on the variator, get it all tight, and then I'll hand turn that variator, which is turning the engine. It's going to be in a compression, but give it a couple spins and that'll allow the spring to come back on the clutch and allow the belt to seat, and the belt should have a little bit of tension on there. Now you're ready to put the side cover on and put the fuel tank back in and get to go. But fire it up once you've got the clutch all done and the fuel tank off to the side. Before it's all buttoned up, fire it up, watch your belt go through the progression of the gear change there. Make sure everything looks good, sounds good, your RPMs are good. Make sure you can click it in and out of gear smoothly. while the engine's running. You don't want to do it. You don't want to accelerate and shift from high to low. You'll definitely break your transmission. Keep your foot on the brake. Put it from neutral to high or neutral to low, and it should click in real smooth and easy, and it should come right back into neutral easy. Again, with your foot applied, you should be able, on the brake. You should be able to go back into reverse, and you should kind of go through the gear changes while your foot is applied onto the brake. If you fail to do that, and you give it any kind of acceleration, and you try and switch gears, you could damage your transmission. Please use caution. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what our discussion was about, was making sure that you get it back together properly. I'd hate to see you have it all back together and realize, oh, something happened on the variator. One of those roller weights slipped out while I was playing with it in my hands trying to put it on. And you've got to take it all apart. So we wanted to show this. We've had a few customers call doing the engines themselves or clutches themselves, and to get it all together and say, oh, it's the RPMs are going off and it feels like it's in gear, and as soon as you put it in gear, it goes clank real hard. That's some of the things that can happen. So we want to let you guys know how to fix it, what the problems are. Again, keep giving us feedback. We love it. I love to hear what you guys are talking about. I want to address any items that you guys feel we need to make videos about. Let me know. Let's fire this up, and we'll get you going. Don't forget to visit warriorsoffroad.com. That's our website. And subscribe to us, please. I would appreciate it. It's a small business here, and I'm doing all this stuff for you guys, and I want to make sure we're putting good product out. If you have any problems or questions, we're available 7 days a week. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.